Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Ishura Season 2, Episode 11. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The Yukiharu stuff at the beginning, at first I was kind of confused. I was like, well, you're in the final lands, and you're kind of acting a little unstable because he's been very, composed every time we've met Yukiharu up until this point. So him to kind of be a little batshit crazy. I didn't know if it was just like hey, he's in the final lands, he's kind of approaching what he wants so much and he's losing himself. But it seems like no, it's just because he's in the final lands, like the madness is starting to take over him. Because we haven't really talked about or they've never really in universe or in the show really explained all that. Like we know that being around the true Demon King infects everyone with madness, but it's like the more people are around, the more it spreads. But like the true Demon King is dead, so I wonder if it's kind of a thing of like when the true Demon King died, it released that miasma that basically perpetually traps the final land in this haze of madness. Like if you're familiar with Trails of Cold Steel, like the miasma from the Dark Dragon, like cursed the Vermilion Divine Knight. Obviously, if you've never played any Trails of Cold Steel games, that sounds like complete utter gibberish. But it's based on the same principle of what I'm saying. Like there's this eternal miasma now because of the true Demon King's death, and it's perpetually being pumped out, and it's stained the land so that everyone's perpetually affected. What's interesting considering no one last episode was affected, but Yukiharu was there for a little bit, but maybe it's something inside of him that connected with the madness, or I don't know. I guess depending on how long you're here, and maybe because he was directly interacting maybe with people who were zombified and stuff and consumed by the madness. But yeah, he ended up, because he did get stabbed by one, and his compatriots yeah, I can't see, but you got stabbed, and he's like, oh wow, yeah, I did. And the lady, he just stomps her to death. You're like, Jesus. And for him, it's yeah, I'm so close to getting what I'm wanting, because he's yeah, no one's ever been able to, because I didn't even think about the fact is the whole him having a camera thing. I keep forgetting, right, he is from the distant world. So he brought a camera from that world here, because I was we haven't really seen cameras get utilized. I never thought about it, even though I've known for a few episodes that Yukiharu's one. I just didn't even correlate that to he was referencing this episode, the camera. So that was interesting. But him and his compatriot have a deal where it's she's going to stay by his side, or at least until he dies. And he's like, oh, I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's kind of see this through. Because ultimately he ends up picking up something that turns out to be extremely fruitful, because as he's leaving, the group he ran into prior to him going to the final lands are people from Akahu who are trying to kill anyone that finds out anything about, the truth of things. But luckily, Yukiharu wasn't alone, because Rick shows up and protects him. But you're like, whoa, why is this all happening? Because even they're like, wait, why are you doing this? They're like, Rick's perspective is right, our job and our contract with Okahu is we'll bring back, we need to ensure the safety of those who were that we're rescuing from the final lands, those who have been driven mad and zombies and stuff. But you going after Yukiharu is kind of in the same vein, because it turns out Yukiharu works for Zagita. Not works for him, it's a client. That's a client working for Zagita. Zagita is working for him. Sorry, I kept saying that back asswards, so I do apologize. And Yukiharu ended up giving him something that it's oh, this can kind of change everything. So we'll have to wait to kind of find, because even by the end of the episode they tease what it is, but we don't know what the full scale of that is. But either way, so that was fascinating. Then we had to sit down. We finally learn our mysterious young buck from the distant world. We've seen him pop up throughout the season. Our gun seller and everything. His name is Hiroto the Paradox. And so he meets with Morio. And Hiroto is scary. It's the guy's very good at getting inside of people. It even says with a one glance, he can look into a person's heart and read it and be able to tell you what they're thinking and kind of what they fear. And so he's sitting down with Morio, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll basically work with you. Basically my group, I will join forces with you. because he'd even said like, oh, because they brought up the whole like, oh, you're the one that was selling guns to Kazuki. He's like, yeah, if I didn't do that, Horatio would have found another way of, they would have gone to someone else about doing this. And Hiroto is all about manipulating people. So it's like, even his warning to Kazuki back in, I want to say that was episode 9 when we got introduced to Kazuki and everything. But I wonder if that was him like, well, I can read you enough to know, and I can figure things out enough to know. Because he kind of warned her about that, and ultimately she ends up dying in the same vein. So it just feels like he saw that coming, and he probably knew like Kazuki would never listen to him. So it's like, no, go ahead. I will warn you, but I know it's kind of like almost like a reverse psychology thing of, oh, I'm going to tell you the truth, knowing that you won't listen to me. So, you know, how many people are like puppeteered on like strings in his game? Because basically he's like, I want to buy every mercenary in town. And Morio's like, wait, are you trying to like eventually buy this entire city? Like, what are you going to... He's like, yeah, I'm going to help you with your like battle against Horatio. He's like, the fact is, I'm going to make it so that you don't lose a single soldier. I can promise you that. And he's like, all right, you want to take this bet? I will basically get every mercenary. I will overcome everyone, and they'll basically, you know, like take my side in all this. So he makes this declaration to everyone, and he bigs up, you know, it's like, oh, Akahu is a very special place. Like, look at all these different people from so many different races coming together. But think about Horatio, like, oh my God, they're so old fashioned with like minions being the ones at the dominant, like being the dominant race above everyone else, and that supremacy. It's like, it's so old fashioned. And he's like, but look at you guys, like, oh, think about Neff. Neff of the first party was a Lycan, or this person from the first party was an elf. You know, it's like this city shows the beauty of like people coming together from different races and having each other's back. Oh, I should also let you know, I made those guns. And some of y'all might be asking, well, how did you make these guns? Did you make them here, here, and here? He's like, nope. You might even be thinking, because I am from the distant world, did you make the weapons there? He's like, no, I made a third other world. Because at first I was like, he's like, I want to show you my power. He's selling it to Morio. So my immediate thought was, oh, do you make the guns yourself? Is that your power? And it's like, no. He said, I went off and made a third other world. I was like, interesting. It's like the first world being the distant world, and this world, I mean, I guess like different, depending on perspective, which world is kind of world 1 and which world is world 2. But him revealing he's got a whole army of goblins, because he's basically like 69 years ago he established, basically he's like on the like edge of this world, at the edge of the seas, I created a third world, and that land is a continent full of goblins. So it seems like he's the only minion that lives there. And he's like, yeah, these goblins, and even the people are like, whoa, goblins, I thought they were extinct. It's like, yeah, there's a whole army and race of them here. Which part of me had wondered just for a little bit. Like, I was like, you don't think they're all clones of Zagita, right? Like, just the fact that Zagita showed up like randomly multiple times, I'm like, are you just moving around that fast? Or is it just a thing of, no, like, there are like, is that how he made all the goblins? Like, the goblins aren't like a vast species. Is it just they're all copies of Zagita? Like, at first I was like wondering if this is kind of like a if you're familiar with Invincible, I was almost wondering if this is almost like a Mauler twin situation, but I'm not sure, like on a bigger scale, multiple copy scale. Well, I guess another example using Invincible would be like Multicate and, Duplicate and Multipole, I guess would be another way of looking at it. I'm wondering, like, could that really be Hiroto's power? But probably not. His power is just like his insight into people and just like being able to manipulate people and pull them on strings, like kind of like a puppeteer. So, but it's just like, maybe they are just like them, like, but how did you like basically bring back a species that seemed to be on the verge of extinction? But it could just be like 69 years ago he gathered them all up and basically built a new place and continent for them, and then just because there were so few of them left that they're all there on that continent, people just assumed that the goblins were extinct. So, but yeah, like Hiroto puppeteering people, he's getting the crowd riled up and by his side being like, yo, you guys have benefited from the guns I've made, that, you know, and the goblins have made, and it's like, that goblin army will be by your side helping you make even more weapons, and we'll even like build even more beyond, like, what people think possible. And Morio's trying to stop him, but then, like, Hiroto kind of takes the opportunity, switches hands with the megaphone, and shakes Morio's hand, and kind of now sealing the deal of, yep, we're in agreement, we're all together. And now it's like Morio's like, cool, I can't back out of this now because I look like the biggest asshole if I try to back out, even though, like, everyone's supporting Hiroto. So if I turn against that this declaration, I'm gonna lose some of not some, but maybe a lot of Akahu will turn against me because they're, like, all about this plan and all about this union, and I look like the one against it. I'll be the only one standing against it. So he kind of got played by Hiroto in that regard. But he's like, no, I promise you, you still won't even have to lose a single soldier, because he's like, oh, we'll get the old kingdom's loyalists on our side. So he's like, what, you're going to work with them? He's like, no, not necessarily. And then we see, like, okay, so we have a general from, well, in fact, there's two generals we interact with in this episode from Eurasia. No, one general from Eurasia. The other one is a general from the Old Kingdom. And the what's her name, Kanea, she thinks she's got it figured out. It's like, oh, we'll cut through the woods. They'll be so distracted because they're thinking they're working with Okahu, and it's like, oh, we'll take advantage of all this. They won't see us coming, and then they all get washed because the whole thing was a trap, and then they get picked off by the goblins. And then that's not the only ones there, because Ozo Nezma is there as well, which I was like, interesting. And it turns out he's working with Hiroto. It's like, how did Hiroto, like, convince you? When did he convince you? Because the last time we saw you was 4 years ago in the Final Lands. Once again, that bard who came there like 2 years ago, came back 2 years ago. I wonder, was Ozo Nezma still there at the time, or had he already been pulled away? Maybe Hiroto has been planning that far in advance. Once again, the guy has been here for, like, I mean, that was all 69 years ago. God knows how long he's actually been in this world. And he kind of screws over the Eurasian soldiers, because he makes it seem like, as he says, it's like, oh, you don't need evidence. All you need to do is leave enough room for interpretation and for someone to kind of be like, oh, this looks a certain way. Or you let people basically fill in the blanks themselves about what the situation is. Because now he's painting a picture of, oh, yeah, you technically worked with Okahu, even though Okahu and Eurasia have beef and they're enemies. But it's like, no, we didn't work with them. It's like, yeah, but it's going to look like that way because I manipulated it, that, oh, it looks like you got backup from them. And Eurasia is not going to be too kind about feeling like you're working and getting backup from their number one enemy. So Hiroto's putting them in a very compromised position. He even suggests, like, oh, what about that other general to the north that isn't stepping on the front lines? It's like, that's all by design, because there's the reformist faction, which supports the queen, who are against the queen, and then there's the queen, who is all about, I think the queen's side, I'm mixing it up. I think the reformist factions are the ones that are pushing for the heroes in the royal games, and these soldiers are kind of loyal to the queen, who is kind of not. So it's like interesting. So, like, your hands are kind of tied and all that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they were saying that was the reformist faction that's all about the games, and not the queen's faction that's all about the games. But like I said, I could be getting that backwards. I do apologize. And it's like, well, what do you want, and why are you doing all this? And for Hiroto, it's like, I want to he spins this narrative about, oh yeah, like, the hero, like, it doesn't have to necessarily just be like one person. He could be like, yeah, it's a person in charge of an entire army. And they try to speak it like, no, the hero has to be an individual. And he's like, cool, you want my help, and I will, obviously, me and my goblins and their weapons will give you infinite support. So you need our help. They kind of get what you want in the end. And the end result is he wants 2 spots for the royal games. One is for Zagita, the strategist, and then, like, Ozo Nezma, the medic, which I thought was interesting. I was like, what is interesting? Because he's also the first person that's had 2 champions, because everyone has one champion that they've kind of served up to be their representative for the royal games. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I think for him it plays better to be the puppeteer, or the person controlling the chessboard in a lot of means. So he was able to sway this whole situation, manipulate everyone in exactly the fashion he wanted to, and got exactly what he wanted. Where it's like, hey, not a single Akahu soldier's life had to be lost. I basically dealt with some loyalists and kind of used them to our advantage to like basically kind of manipulate and blackmail some Eurasian soldiers that kind of fall in line too. So it's like, this man is deadly. So that's very interesting. And he ends up talking to Morio at the end, and it's like, yeah, everything kind of went exactly the way you wanted it to. He's like, yeah, because basically in the final lands, I found the leverage I needed. He's like, the thing you've never wanted anyone to know, the thing that you've known the entire time is, you, Morio, have known the identity of the true Demon King, and whatever it was is in his hand. I wonder, is that the thing we see at the end of the episode kind of opens on it, but it's the end of the opening for the show where it's like that little patch of something's on a chair and it lights up. I wonder, is that what's in his hand right now? Is it some clear evidence? Because that's why I'm also like, is that whole the true Demon King having a child, was that complete other bullshit, or is that supposed to be the whole situation with 2 from last episode? But then it seems like, no, she's not she's not the true Demon King's child, but you're like, yeah, but there's unknown origins about her, so we don't know what her situation is. There's a lot there. Some very, very interesting developments. I'm so curious to see how this all wraps up. The next episode should be the season finale. What I was seeing online is there's only 12 episodes like season 1, so not unless I've been lied to, but a lot of places are saying 12, but we'll see. But it's interesting to see, once again, like, because the story structure has continued to be, yes, there's overarching stories, but it's like, it's just continued to be introduced to this character, but once again, like, it doesn't follow the same full structure that season 1 did, but it kind of does, because there are so many overlapping episodes, even though it's like each episode is following a different character. It's like, but to be fair, like I said, in retrospect, it's like season 1 kind of followed the same like thematic like pacing and everything. I don't know, it's just it's interesting the approach that this season has, because you almost think to yourself like, oh, things haven't really culminated like they did last season, but it's like, well, in actuality they have. It's just not to the same scale and hasn't been done exactly the same way. It's, I guess, the kind of approach to kind of make it, once again, I don't know if this is just being true to the light novel in this way, or whether it's just like, no, this is just how they're structuring it for the anime adaptation. Also, a thing that I found out a couple weeks ago that I kept forgetting to bring up, I did not realize that the illustrator of the light novel of Ishura is also the same illustrator for the light novel of Demon Lore 2099. Their name is Kureta. If I'm hopefully I'm not butchering that. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So just a little interesting detail where I was like, I guess in some ways I'm looking at it like, I could see some of the, like, I don't know if that fully translates in the anime, but I'm like, I could see some of like the similar designs, but I mean, I don't know like how that translates from maybe it's a lot clearer when you just look at the light novels by, but it feels like it's there as well, even in the anime adaptations, but maybe that's just me. Whereas it might be one of those things of, oh, once you know something, now you see it, even though whatever the case may be. Just wanted to kind of include that, because like I said, I found that out weeks ago and I just kept forgetting about it. But yeah, like I said, I'm interested to see how this all wraps up in the potential season finale next episode. So really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.